Calling all authors, the Your Book, Your Voice podcast with host Robert A. Lane features everything you need to know about narrating your audiobook, but it doesn't stop there. We have special guests lined up from all aspects of the book publishing industry, and we also dive deep into what it takes to be mentally prepared for success as an author and in life. So please welcome your host, Robert A. Lane.
Hey, my friends, how are you today? Welcome to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I am your host, Robert A. Lane. I have a business called Robert Lane Coaching. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you. Appreciate you being here. I am an audiobook coach and producer, and I specialize in helping nonfiction authors turn their fantastic book into an audiobook that they, as the author, narrate in their own voice, which is really crucial because nobody can tell your story better than you. And this is why I love what I do. And then I have an audiobook coaching program, which takes you through the process of setup and preparation to doing a compelling narration, and then getting you published on Audible, Amazon, and Apple, which are the three platforms you really definitely need to be on, and any other distribution platform that you need to be. But we are open forum on the podcast, which is great. We are streaming live, by the way, on the Bold Brave TV network. And I love bringing on guests, and we have a great guest to talk to on the show today. So super excited to talk to Dr. Brian E. Arnold. Dr. Brian is an author who's written actually a couple of books. We'll be talking about those in the podcast today. And but Dr. Brian is also a coach. He's an entrepreneur, speaker. Has a great inspirational story to share with you about his journey growing up and going through any adversity that he went through to be the incredible human being that he is today. So just super excited to bring on the show Dr. Brian Arnold.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is exciting just to be able to talk to you and talk about things that are happening in life that just seem to be going in a way. I just literally did a podcast with a gentleman who wrote a book about happiness, and he has this little scale that you can go on and decide whether you're happy or not. And so I got a 95 on his out of 100 scale of happiness. So I'm feeling pretty good now that at least I'm happy. Yeah.
I love it. No, that's awesome, Dr. Brian. I love that you have this professional motto: inspire, empower, and serve others to create lasting impact. That's very powerful in itself. How did you come up with this motto?
A lot of it is just going back into my life and saying, okay, what can I do to impact others' life? And I say this prayer every day: dear Lord, give me the wisdom to do the things that you put me on this earth to do in a way that pleases you and serves others. And then I say, well, so how do I do that? How do I actually serve other people in a way that I can inspire them, that I can get them off their booties and do with the things that they need to do? Because that's the other part of it, is how do I help people become the person they need to be in order to do whatever the thing is that they want to do. And a lot of it came from my own experiences. People tell me I couldn't, I wouldn't, I shouldn't, don't even try that. It's not worth it. And then after I go, wait a minute, why not? And then finding out what makes me happy. I'm a dad that has 8 children that are amazing. I have 16 grandkids now, which are even more amazing. And so what do I have to be sad about? How can I not inspire people with some of the things that I get to do every single day?
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I love that you embrace family, and that's important, because I think that's something that it seems to fall to the wayside sometimes with a lot of people, and family is just really important. So having a strong family unit is a really great thing. So glad you're doing that. Now we're going to talk about your book, There Is No Tiger. I know we're going to dive into that because there's some really great concepts in that book that I definitely want you to dive into. And I also want to talk with you about some of the programs that you've done and get more details, like the Journey to Freedom Initiative and the Metro Funding Group, and also the remote access, was it the remote assistant pros? That's it. Those are great programs. But before we dive into that, let's step back. And where did you grow up?
I grew up here in Denver, Colorado. My mom's from California, my dad's from Kansas City, and they said, well, they wanted to be in the middle, so we could go see both grandparents, and so they just pulled up in Denver, Colorado, and said, this is where we're going to be. No affiliation, ties, anything. They were just trying to figure out what their life was going to look like, and so that's where I was able to grow up. And then I went to college in California, but grew up right here in Denver. So.
And I know you mentioned in the biography that you had sent me about special education. Now, is that something that was a challenge for you growing up, or is it something else?
Oh no, absolutely. And part of me goes, I don't know how big or special ed I really was. Part of it is just the times and when I grew up in this kind of suburban city in Denver, Colorado, where when I think about the transition our country was making and trying to figure out where do you put young Black kids and young Black boys. And I went to high school. There was my high school is the largest high school in the state, 3,500 kids.
Wow.
There were 35 Black families that had kids at the school, and 25 of us were in special ed classes. And so I don't know if that had anything to do with stuff, but I believe I have dyslexia, and then it wasn't called that. My mom did whatever she could to help me. I had teachers that just told me, don't ever do this. The one I do remember, because now I'm writing, right? I'm in English class in ninth grade, and my teacher's going to teach me how to spell. And okay, that's great. Back then spelling was the number one thing before technology. You couldn't be anything if you weren't able to spell. And so she would have me do these spelling tests, and I would stay after school, and I would come in early before school, and she would help me memorize these words, and I would get them, and I could spell them to her right away, right there, and then a week later, I take the test or whatever it is, and I spell 50% of those words wrong. And she just said, I'm done. I'm not going to deal with you no more. You can't be in my class anymore. Go back to the trailer that was outside. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand. I didn't want to go to college, because college would make me feel like I was dumb or not able to do anything. I was going to go be a stuntman. And so I happened to be a pretty good athlete. So I had, scholarship offers. And then it's like, go to school, get a good education, you'll get a good job. And my mom was like, you can't make money as a stuntman. You need to go to school. And I'm like, I don't want to go to school. She says, I will buy you a Jeep. In that time, you're 18 years old. You don't make great decisions on like material things. And so if you just go to college. And so I literally went to college just so that my mom would buy me a Jeep when I graduated. I didn't, she said, well, you have to take these tests called the ACT and the SAT. And I'm like, why? There's no way I'm going to do well after all these classes. And they said, well, it doesn't matter where you score. They just need a starting place. So I literally went in the room and I just bubbled in, as I went down. I think I probably read like 10 questions, bubbled it in. I think I scored, if you can score less than 700 on an SAT, that's what I did, because I think you get I spelled my name right, and I think you get like 400 points for just doing your name. And I think I guessed that right. And so, I went to college, and I began to realize, wait a minute, I can do some of this stuff. They put me in, special different things that I could do in college to be able to do stuff. And I realized, wait a minute. And then when I became a PE teacher and a communication major, so I could speak and do stuff. And that went okay. I was able to get through. And then I decided I was teaching school, and this thing called computers came out. And I was able to, go get my master's in this thing called computers. And I realized I could either talk to the computer or I could write. I could use the spell checker, and before Google came out, we had spell checks and that kind of stuff. So I was able to get through because of technology equalizing the playing field. I couldn't. I tried to come back to Colorado, but I could not teach in Colorado because Colorado had a 100-word spelling test that you would have to pass in order to be a teacher in Colorado. So I tried it, came here, and then went back to California because they didn't care in California people could spell. And so it's amazing that I can write books right now, but it's so cool that I can talk to Google and it'll write my whole book for me. I mean, as I'm writing it and talking to it just say it, and then the words come out spelled right. And so I was able to do that with my dissertation as well. I mean, it's amazing how much technology can equalize that adversity that stops you from achieving things.
Yeah. So going back to those times where, you have a teacher that's like, okay, I'm done with you. You got to get out of my class. How does that affect you just from, the mindset aspect? Did that create, a barrier, an incredible barrier? Because I mean, just to have, uh, an instructor, a teacher, someone who, is supposed to be there to help you, like shut you down. How do you get over something like that?
Yeah, well, first you have to be around people and associations and groups of people who believe in you, whatever you're going to do. But yes, talking about devastated, I didn't believe that I was going to make anything out of my life when I even left. I didn't believe that I was a good enough athlete to make it to the Olympics or anything like that. I don't know why they were asking me to, go to college and pay for my college to be able to do it. But without different people and certain aspects of people in my life that would say, wait, you have some talent. You are special. You are somebody who can get stuff done. I don't think I would have. I was able to, when you have one weakness, you think of something else that is a strength. And so my weakness in written and that time of ability allowed me to speak better and be able to communicate better and be able to love on people better. And so I developed this relationship skill where I have incredible relationships with people, and those people reciprocate back. And that's where that energy comes back to me, is within my relationships. Even to this day, I do so much better on the communication side of relationships that and now it doesn't matter. You can tell me that I'm dumb now. You can tell me that I can't do anything now. Even my kids, like, Dad, I can't even read this. I'm like, you don't need to read this. You know what I'm talking about. So it doesn't even bounce off, doesn't faze me. I'm in good shape because, not only do I know what I can do, I know whose I am, and I know that there's nothing. I guess there's a whole bunch of things that I can't do, and I don't want to do. I don't want to work for NASA and figure out like calculations on how to get somebody to the moon. It's not even a little bit. I can add and subtract and figure out money, right? So I can figure out how to do that. So I don't need to go to the moon. And so there's all kind of things that, I've learned. These are your strengths. These are your weaknesses. Take your weaknesses and make them a strength. And once somebody told me how to do that, oh my gosh, life was a different place.
Yeah, doors just open. You're listening to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. We got to take a quick break. One question I want to ask you, Dr. Brian, before we go to the break, and we'll answer it after the break, is what was there a pivotal moment? Was there a pivotal moment that made that shift? And I'd love to hear what that is. You're listening again to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. My very special guest is Dr. Brian E. Arnold, and we're going to be back in just a bit. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. We discover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
All right, welcome back to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. I'm an audiobook coach and producer. Glad to be here with you. And I'm very excited that we have a very special guest today, Dr. Brian E. Arnold, who is a coach, speaker, entrepreneur. You've just done a lot of great things. Oh, I did want to ask you before I have you answer the question that we talked about before the break. What was your sport? What was the thing that
So I was a track and field athlete, and so
cool.
I ran the 400 hurdles, and I was able to do pretty well. I can say, not good enough to. If I was from another country, I would have made the Olympics, but not in the United States. There's just so many good athletes. You may remember an athlete, Edwin Moses, which he won like 140 straight races. Well, I know what his back looks like pretty well. Either it's while we're warming up or in a race. I know exactly what it looks like. So at least that I can say I was in some of the races with him. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So before we took our break, the question that I presented to you, Dr. Brian, was there a pivotal moment that changed your mindset, the belief system maybe you had for yourself that went from people creating this barrier to you breaking through that barrier and then opening the doors to that journey that has brought you to where you are today? Was there a pivotal moment?
What I would say that kind of changed. I did well in athletics, and so that was good, and that helped me move forward. But I think the day that I had my son, that we had our son, Stefan, and that was 36 some years ago, that I realized I was responsible for a life. I was responsible for making sure that he had the best life possible. And my shortcomings, my weaknesses couldn't be the thing that were going to stop him from being the best that he could be. And I think that moment right there, when I just looked into the sky and I did the, I don't remember the movie Roots, but I know I held them up like they do and say,
Yeah.
the thing greater than yourself, and I did that. And so it was, that's kind of, how I started running my life. And then I started searching out mentors. And I started searching out people that I knew could help me. I had people at church that I'd interacted with, but nothing like what I was looking for, because now I had a reason. I had a reason why I needed to be better, why I needed to move beyond what people told me I could be into what God built me to be. And so that, I think that, when I think of pivotal moments in my life, that's one of them. I've had, several, but that was the one I can remember the greatest that helped me get there.
That's great. That's great. Love it. I do want to talk about your book. Now, I know you have a couple of books. I know there is no tiger, which is about overcoming overthinking. And it's funny, when I read that, it's like There is no tiger, overcoming overthinking and controlling anxiety. And my mental floodgates opened.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah, there we go.
I was like, oh my God, I thought of this thing that I overthought and that thing that I overthought, and then this caused anxiety, and maybe it created a barrier that stopped me from doing something that I wanted to do because of fear, because I was afraid to do it, and that created more stress. I'm like, so all these things opened up. So I'm really excited to talk about your book. So what was the well, first of all, what was the inspiration for writing There Is No Tiger?
The biggest thing is as I'm doing coaching, whether I'm coaching athletes or I'm coaching business people, and I come to what is the one big challenge that people have, and they kept telling me about all these things that were going to happen if they didn't do something, or what wasn't going to happen, or what if this
Mm,
happened, and they would go into these elaborate, what if I go speak in front of people and somebody doesn't like me, and then when they don't like me, they tell my mom about it, and they tell my mom about it. My mom's going to tell my kids about it, and they tell my kids about it. Then they're not going to love me, and then they're going to grow up, and they're going to be dysfunctional, and they just keep going, going, going. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You can't control any of that.
yeah,
All these things that we overthink about, we figure out like, wow. And here's what's crazy, because it's this real that goes in our mind, right?
yeah.
And we play this movie as if it's real, and we try to control all these outcomes, but it's always negative. We don't ever try to control, well, I'm going to come home and my wife's going to love me so much, and she's going to make the dinner for me, and it's going to be fantastic, and we're going to go watch a movie together, and it's just going to this wonderful work. Then we're going to go to make some money. We're going to go to the beach. We don't do that. We think about all the things that can happen that are going to hurt us. And and I'll just tell a quick story, and it's in the book here. But I win a sales contest, and I'm doing pretty well. I got my team going there, and we're going to go to one of the islands. So I think it was St. Martin.
Mm,
And so, I get my team, and I got all the money, and we get ready. Man, I got a limo picking them up to take us to LAX. Well, the limo driver doesn't show up on time, and we're rushing through LA traffic to try to get to the airport so that we can get on this plane. And luckily enough for us that the plane was delayed 4 or 5 hours, so it didn't matter. So now we don't have any stress. Then we land in Puerto Rico, and then something happens in Puerto Rico before we get to the island, and we're stuck there. So then the stress goes back up. Then we get to the island, and then the car that's supposed to pick us up and take our luggage isn't there. So now the stress goes back up, and I'm freaking out. And then we get to the hotel, and they don't have our rooms under the reservation names in the computer the way it's supposed to be. So, and one of our people forgot their birth certificate or passport or something. And so now I'm just, I'm sweating, I'm freaking out. What am I going to do? I got 10 people that we have rooms for. We're supposed to have the best week of our life. What am I going to do? And then I started, I got pretty heated with the, whoever the front desk person is. And out of the corner of my eye, this guy comes, the concierge, the guy who's going to save the day. And he's like, what is wrong with you, man? And I'm like, and I start going into it. And he just looks at me. He goes, I said, what is wrong with you, man? We're on this beautiful island. And I'm like, but I don't have this and this. And he says, oh, but so, as he says, there is no, he says, is the shark going to get you? And no shark. He says, is the tiger going to get you? Like, no, there's no tigers here. And he's like, well, I just need you to, he said, I need you to come down, man. He says, on the island, and this is for the rest of your week, on the island, there are no problems, only inconveniences. And right then, it just kind of melted in my mind. Wait a minute. We are in this beautiful place. We are on this island. They're not going to put us on a plane tonight. We're going to have to figure out something. We will do it. It's not the end of the world. I'm with my favorite people. My wife's here with. We're doing some amazing things this week, and I don't have to be worried about all these things that could possibly happen. Even though there was things that were really happening, it's like
yeah.
now I took it to that next level. And then from the rest of my time, every time I get into the stressful situation or where emotions get high and intelligence gets low, I start going, wait a minute, this is only an inconvenience. This isn't a problem. And so now I'm coaching people, and so okay, yes, your life is going to be okay. And then so that became the reason for the book. Then I started studying what are some techniques that people can do, like breathe, just
Yeah.
breathe,
Yeah. Totally.
So there's a whole bunch of, and I tried to make it very practical where there's a story in every chapter of something where somebody just took it to that next level. And then, okay, here's a technique that you can use that will help you stop just focusing on this thing that you can't control.
Yeah.
And you can't control the future because none of us know what it's really going to be. But yet we do. We'll have 10 scenarios and 10 ways it's going to solve it. And now we've spent hours and hours, probably like, with those floodgates open for you, of figuring out how we were going to do something that most time never even came close to happening.
Yeah. No, great point. And I love that. There's only inconveniences. I love that. That is a great way of looking at things. And another thing that you mentioned, Dr. Brian, was the fact that a lot of people are so concerned about what others think. And, I have a catchphrase that I say, which is, I am who I am, I do what I do, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I don't care what other people think. And that's not said in a mean or vindictive way. It's just stating a matter of fact. I don't care what other people think because I am who I am, I do what I do, and I'm not ashamed of it.
You were so right. And the worry that we get when we think about how others perceive us. And in reality, in most cases, people are thinking about how you perceive them more than you're thinking about how they perceive you, right? And
Yeah,
so we run around in our life worrying about, well, what if I'm wearing the wrong thing? This is with my wife where you just go, okay, we're in the closet for how long because we got to wear the perfect dress because why? We're worried about how somebody's going to perceive us. And I'm like, what if they don't like your dress? Are they going to come up to you really and go, I hate your dress? No, but what if they think it? Okay.
yeah,
I am who I am, right? I'm going to do
yeah,
what I do. But
yeah.
when we think about fear, right? Like true fear is real and present danger where a tiger could literally jump on you and eat you. That's what
Right.
fear is.
Yeah.
When I think, okay, people say, well, the thing that people are most afraid of is public speaking. And I'm like,
Mm.
that's not a real and present danger. They're not, no, you go up to speak, nobody's going to eat you or nobody's going to take your kids from you or anything like that. You just might not be good at it. But the anxiety comes from trying to control that future worry, that future
Right.
perception of what others believe about what we're going to do. And so part of it is just our personal, who are we becoming? And so I finished my second book, which is called The Decision Formula on how to make decisions. But I'm actually already starting to work on the third one, which is because the other two are done, which is be, do, have. How do you become the person you need to be in order to do the thing? And then you get to have what it is. But we get it all backwards, right? We try to do, have, and then be. And so we go do all this stuff that we don't know how to do, and we can't do it. And then we try to have something as a result of it, and it gets all messed up. Or we even go back because we go have, do, be. So now we go buy something on credit or whatever. Now we have this thing. Now we got to go do something to pay for what we have, and then we still haven't become the person. And like you said, let's
Right.
become the person that doesn't duck that water off a duck's back, right? You see that duck that's smooth on the surface and
Yep.
the leg underneath it. Okay, that's fine. And I'm not saying anxiety is never good. There's a fear response that we have, fight or flight that we have. That's real
Yeah.
fear. But
Yeah.
that stuff we make up, that's not. Hey, if I get on this plane, what if it crashes? And then we spend all this time on every place that it's going to fall out of the sky, and I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, how, what is a 747 is like almost 1,000,000 pounds, and how does it get up in the air and move? I don't get it either, but it does, and it's safer than traveling in my car, so I can't spend my whole life worried about every time I get on a plane where it's going to go, but yet I have relatives that won't get on a plane.
Yeah. Yeah. I know people. Who. Yeah. Actually, my mom was one of those people
Yeah.
who didn't fly, and her fear came from I believe my grandmother saw a plane crash, but we're talking like when aviation was in its infancy.
Like the Wright brothers,
So
they didn't make it.
yeah, I mean, which I think was at an air show or something. And I don't even know if
Okay.
my mom was even born yet, or maybe she was as a little girl. I don't know, but that just instilled this fear, and which is something that I like to touch on. I know we're coming up to our next break pretty soon, but I would like to talk about maybe some of your techniques of how do you deal with fear? How do you get down, to that root cause and figure out what it is that's causing the fear? Like you mentioned, public speaking. That's a great example, because that's something that even with the authors who go through the audiobook coaching program that I teach, fear is a big factor, because a lot of people are not comfortable narrating their audiobook because I hate my voice. I don't have what it takes. And it's like, no, that is so not true. That's not true. So what is it that is stopping you? Let's strip away the layers. And I love to get your take on that. But we're going to do that after we take this quick break. You are listening to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. My very special guest is Dr. Brian Arnold, who is a speaker and author. We've been talking about his book, There Is No Tiger, which has some really great concepts about overcoming overthinking, which is a big thing, and of course, controlling anxiety. So we're going to dive into that when we come back. We're streaming live here on the Bold Brave TV network. My friends, don't go away.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
And welcome back to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. We have a very special guest on the podcast today, Dr. Brian E. Arnold, who is a speaker, who's an author. We've been talking about his book, There Is No Tiger, which is a great book about overcoming overthinking and controlling anxiety. And we're going to dive into one question that I think is important, and I'd love to get your take, and that is, what are some tools or techniques that you help people with in regards to overcoming fear, overcoming that anxiety?
Yeah, it's such a good question, because it's obviously different for everybody, because everybody perceives it differently. I think the number one thing that we have to do is we have to be aware that we're doing it. And once we start doing that and we start going down those rabbit holes that we put in, if we can stop ourselves, whether it's an anchor, a snap, or something like that, where you go, wait a minute, is this really happening, or is this something I'm perceiving that's going to happen? And in most cases, you stop yourself, you go, wait a minute, this isn't real. We say that fear is false evidence appearing real, right? And so, and we have to realize the difference between fear and anxiety too, because fear is that real and present danger. You're going to have to do something right now, or something's going to happen that could harm you, that could physically hurt you, that could mentally put you in a trauma situation. That's a whole different response than I'm thinking about, I got to go speak in front of public, right? So then, we see all the tricks that people have told us. I'm just giving public speaking as an example. We'll look at the audience as if they're in underwear, and laugh and that kind of stuff. And I don't know if that ever works. It hasn't been something that I've ever tried to imagine or do. But what I can do is I can start with my breathing techniques. Excuse me. I can start with yoga. I can start with, really thinking, okay, what is the asking yourself, what's truly the worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that could truly happen to me? Because most of the time, sorry about that, I got something in my throat. When you public speak, the worst thing is they just don't like your speech, or they don't like what you have to say. But they're not going to do what your mind is thinking they're going to do. They're not going to throw, maybe in the 15 and 1600s, they would throw fruit at you or something like that. And then it could harm you. But in our case, no, the worst thing they're going to do. And as long as your mom's in the audience or your sister's in the audience, they're going to tell you did a great job anyways. It doesn't matter what you say, how you say it. So put those people that need to be around you when you're doing something that you're fearful of. The next thing is, you can do some of the things like listing the pros and cons of, let's say I have some fear and I'm overthinking my move to another state, and so, okay, so what is, I think, when I think of reversible decisions and irreversible decisions, 99% of the decisions we make are reversible. And we have to look at it as reversible because we see it like, what if I move? Well, if you don't like it, move back. And you start thinking through that process of, okay, is this decision or this thing that I'm scared of reversible? What happens if it doesn't work? What happens if I go up and I'm a terrible speaker? Well, you haven't been speaking for 20 years anyways. There's nothing that says you have to be a speaker. You might want to be a speaker, but if you're that bad and you don't want to work at getting good, well, don't be a speaker. Write a book or do it in a way that it's not out in front of an audience. You get good at it on a podcast. So you find yourself alternatives that will allow you to do the thing that you're ruminating on. Because the worst thing you can do is just continue down that rabbit hole or pathway that's not going to get you to the place you want to be. And so, that's like one or two things that you can begin to do is just making sure that you know that it's there. Have somebody who can walk you through. Tell them. Now, there is like clinical anxiety that I'm not trying to solve here. This is where it gets to the point where you can't function. You remember that copycat movie with Sigourney Weaver where she can't come out of her house and agoraphobia and all that stuff. That's a way more than this book is going to even think about trying to help you get through, or more than most people need to do. But for just our normal overthinking, and some of it, like you said, it really doesn't matter. What if you go to the black tie affair and you're not wearing a black tie? Oh no, life is not over. In most cases. And the people who are going to hate you for doing it probably don't need to be your friends anyways. The other is your associations. If you have friends and associations or people that always are walking you or helping you go down these paths, because you do, we all have those friends that you don't know if you want to do that because this is what's going to happen. You got to get rid of those people. Or stop them in their tracks. If it's your sister, you probably can't get rid of your family, but you don't have to hang out with your sister all the time. You can just say, "Wait a minute, how do you know?" My daughter, she's one of my favorite people on the planet, and her favorite line, no matter what I say, is like, "You don't know." It's just like, you're at the store and they didn't have the right part here, and they, that person doesn't like me because I didn't. You don't know, and she just says that like one of the greatest lines ever. Like, you don't know, and I don't for real, but that interrupts the pattern. We talk about pattern interrupts, and you talk about stopping that going down. The you don't know is so good, and I say it to myself all the time now. when I'm getting upset with somebody or traffic is not the right way, I don't know if, we ran into a snowstorm coming back from California in November, and we were going through, and then my wife's like, I don't know if we're going to make it. I'm like, you don't know. And so driving, we drove by all these cars and on the side of the road. They know they're not going to make it right now because they're all stopped. We're fine. We got the right car. We got the right things we're doing. Yeah, so it's a great pattern interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's a great phrase. 3 simple words, but very powerful words. I love that. And I think really the biggest takeaway from all this is be in the present moment.
Yes.
Be present. Be present. Who cares what happens in the past? It doesn't matter. It's gone. It's done. Who cares about what's going to happen in the future? Why worry about something that has not come to pass? Be in the present moment. When you're in the present moment, you're focused, you're grounded, you're in your zone. That's where you need to be. And I think that's where you're able to overcome a lot of this fear, which, as you say, those 2 different kinds of fear. Like this is a fear that you can change into something to be more positive.
Yeah. And if you're a person who really, does this often every day, this is a perfect book for you, because you can begin to do some of these techniques on a daily basis and start asking some of these things. Write them down. I give very practical, try this. Some of the things are going to work. Some of the things you're going to worry about that, right? You're going to think, well, if I do this technique and it doesn't work, then I'm never going to be able to do the thing I'm doing. I'm trying to do that, so yeah, you don't know.
So again, the Dr. Bryan's book is called There Is No Tiger. It is available now, by the way, on Amazon. You can get the ebook version, paperback version, correct? You got your other book, The Decision Formula, which is going to be coming out soon, which is great. So please look out for that as well. I do want to talk about those programs that you've founded, and I just think that those are great things that you're doing for people and for the community and everything. So let's talk about the Journey to Freedom initiative. What is it, and what do you do with that program?
So Journey to Freedom came out of me going to a seminar, a guy named David Horsager, who does this stuff on trust and why we trust and how we need to begin with trust, which would help anxiety and fear, right? If you trust the person you're doing, you don't have that. And it was this seminar where there was 500 people who went to the seminar. As you can tell, I'm a person of color, and somehow we look at those things. And so I look in the room, and there's only 30 people of color in this room of 500. I'm like, why is my community not have access to this information? Or why do we not want this information? Because evidently he's here and he's doing the seminar, so we have access. But why are we not taking part in the access, and what's stopping us? And so I came back to Colorado, and I started thinking, how can I get this information into the communities that I get to serve sometimes? And out of that became Journey to Freedom. And I started looking at, exclusively Black men. And God told me, it's like, I don't want to just work with Black men, God. And he said, no, that's what I want you to do. And so we came up with trust, faith, health, identity, and finance, which are 5 pillars for anybody that could help them. If they can get those 5 things done, then they can move forward. And so, as I'm working through, these 5 pillars, I start the podcast. And I said, okay, this year, I haven't seen this. I'm going to interview 100. This is 2024. Now, as we're filming this, we're now in 2025. But I'm going to interview 100 Black men who are successful. And from all walks of life, whether they're engineers, whether they're athletes, whether they're actors, whether they're trashmen, whatever it is, because success isn't about how much money you make, and it's not, it's the happiness, all these things that go into it. Yeah. And so over the last year, I did 105, and I really started to interview just some amazing men, several men that came out of prison situations, many that they were single family homes, and the epidemic of taking dads out of the house. And, but all of them had a few things in common. One is they wanted to serve people. One is they wanted to see somebody who looked like them be able to do the thing. One of them was just their abilities to be dads and what it meant to be dads. And so, that was so huge to be able to do that this program is now, so I got a podcast, I got coaching stuff, I have, I'm interviewing, even more people and just helping people get unstuck in the belief that they can't do it, that they can't move forward because of previous circumstances. And it says, oh, yeah, I'm not going to tell you that America has been this amazing place for Black men over the last 400 years, because it hasn't. That would be crazy
Yeah.
to say that. But I
Yeah.
can tell you we got the best opportunity that's known to man right now to take advantage of. And so if we don't look at the shoulders of the giants, the MLKs and the Nelson Mandelas and the people that shoulders we can stand on and say, you did all this so that I can have and do this. Don't let me get stuck back there. Help me forget. I need to know the past is there, but no, let's move forward because of what they've done. So I'm taking 14 men to Alabama at the end of this month, and we're going to kind of go through like a civil rights tour. We're going to do that this year. I'll just talk to one of my friends, interview a whole bunch of Olympic athletes and see what they did to overcome, and be able to do stuff. I'm starting one that's not going to just be exclusively for Black men. This is going to be men in general. Right now we took a podcast out of it. It's called Why Love Weight. When you think of this, and I don't know if you know this statistic, but 50% of Black women over the age of 40 have never been married. And figuring out why that has happened in our community, because in the 60s, in the 70s, when segregation was worse, when it was only 10 to 20%. And so why Black women don't want to be with Black men, or don't believe they can, or believe they have to do it on their own, and what they've been taught, that's part of that segment as well, as we're moving that forward. And so that's what Journey to Freedom has been all about, and just being able to help in a community that, quite frankly, has been trying to figure out a whole lot of things and not moving forward and being stuck and worried about all the stuff that's in the past. And that's not where we need to be.
That's great. That's great. It's a really commendable thing you're doing, Brian. We got to take one more quick break. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I do want to talk. I know we're almost at the top of the hour, but there's so much to talk to you about. But we're going to take a quick break. We're going to try to cram in as much as we can in this last segment. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. My special guest is Dr. Brian E. Arnold. Don't go away, my friends. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network, and we will be right back.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network. Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com.
Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. My very special guest today is Dr. Brian E. Arnold, who has been sharing some incredible stories and doing some wonderful things. Now, I know we're pressed for time, but I want to try to get in as much as I possibly can. I do want you to touch on the Metro Funding Group and what you do with that, and also the Remote Assistant Pros. And then, of course, where people can get in touch with you as well. So let's start with the Metro Funding Group. What do you do to help people with that?
Absolutely. So I am a serial entrepreneur. So I try to do as many things as I can, all in the vein of helping people become what they need to become. So Metro Funding Group is helping people out with living trust. I do reverse mortgages. That's kind of the things that pay the bills and make sure that I'm doing good. And so living trust is one of those things I've been doing for over 20 years now, where I want to make sure that people's assets are not leaving into the state, or the state's taking them, or that kind of stuff. And so I help people, get going there. The Remote Assistance Pro is just so fun because virtual assistants. So there's so many like small business owners that don't have enough money to have a full-time employee, but have enough to need to get something done. And so we hire folks from the Philippines that can help people get stuff done, like realtors or mortgage professionals, or financial planners, where they may need some calls to be done or something like that. And so we spend a little bit of time just finding the right person. Technology again equals out everything, right? I can have like my assistant calls people for me all day long. You can't tell she's from the Philippines. She has a degree, but she's like $6 or $7 an hour, which in the Philippines is like somebody making $50 an hour here, and so, and I can hire for the amount of time, and we do it over the line. And so I help people find that gap before they can, take off in business and be able to do that. But the things I'm most excited about, when you think about living in purpose and you think about helping people find that purpose, people tell you can do anything you want to do, or anything. And I'm like, well, no, you can't do anything. You could want to do it, but you could really be terrible at it. So do the things that your purposes are, right? I talked about being an aerospace engineer. Could I probably study hard enough to be an aerospace engineer? Maybe, but I would hate every second of it. I wouldn't want to get up. I wouldn't want to do anything. So why would I want to be? So I want to be why I'm here and where I can serve others. And then once you find out a way to do that, that's where happiness is. That's where fulfillment is. That's where your life gets to take off. So stop doing things you don't like doing and go find what you can do. You don't have to do things you don't like doing all day. Now, you might have to start out that way, but you don't have to spend your whole life doing it.
That's right. And you know what? If there is something that you love to do and that you're passionate about doing, and maybe it is hard for you, but if you love doing it, then do it. Do the work. Do the work, because you know what? The reward is on the other side waiting for you. You really can. And it's hard, it's hard work. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'm a musician, but I'm not like the greatest guitar player or composer in the world, but I do the best that I can, and I have to work for it. And I know there are other people there that are more talented than me, whether they're athletes or educators or whatever, that can do things better than I can. But you know what? If you do something, do it with heart, do it with love. And if it's hard, go for it, right?
Absolutely. Because if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be worth it. We wouldn't know what easy is if it was never hard. And so, this is easy. Oh, no, you don't know that, because it doesn't get to be all the time. But then if you love it, it becomes what you do second nature, and then you get to do those things. And like I said, if you're serving other people and you're helping people achieve their goals and their dreams, however that may be, or just a listening experience, right? Even if you're not the best musician, there's somebody who's going to want to listen to you, and somebody who's going to experience it and have a great emotional experience from it, and enjoy the things that you work so hard to be able to do.
Absolutely. Dr. Brian, how can people get in touch with you?
Yep. So my best place is my website, brianearnold.com, BrianeArnold.com. And everything I do is there. So everything we've talked about today, everything I'm going to talk about in the future, everything I'm talking about in the present is all there for you to partake. If you don't have internet, then you're probably not going to find me. But it's able to do it. So it's just so fun.
Right. If you don't have internet, then you probably are missing out on this podcast.
And you're not watching this anyways for me telling you what it is that how you can find me. So
Oh, no kidding. So is there a quick one piece of advice that you can share with the audience?
I would just say you can do it. You can do it. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. You have the ability to be able to do it. So
Mhm.
get out and go do it. No matter, even don't overthink it. Go out and do it. Don't have anxiety about it. Go out and do it because you can do it. You are God's greatest gift, and He put you on this planet to do some amazing things, and you need to go do it.
That's right. And if you're overthinking and if you're having any anxiety, then you need to get Dr. Brand's book, There Is No Tiger, because you're going to learn some good tools and techniques to overcome
Absolutely,
these fears, right? These fears that you can overcome. And that's the beauty of it. That is the beauty of it. Dr. Brian Arnold, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. It's been a great pleasure speaking with you today.
And you too, Robert. Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to talk to your audience and to hopefully give some inspiration, but more just know that the belief that they are capable of doing whatever it is they're meant to
Love
do.
it. Yeah, love it. All right, now, and I do this on any live, whether it's a coffee chat or a podcast. I give you an assignment, and the assignment is this: when you're out and about in the world, my friends, smile at a stranger, say hello to them, give them a compliment, because that 5 or 10 seconds of that little gesture of kindness can make the world of difference in somebody's life. So be a life changer because you can be. All right. So go out there, be good humans. And again, thank you, Dr. Brian E. Arnold, for being a guest. And of course, we'll be back here next week for another edition of the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Thank you again so much for joining. I'm Robert A. Lane. If you are an author, by the way, and you are curious about what I do as an audiobook coach and producer, you can go to my website, which is robertlanecoaching.com, and find out more about the Your Book, Your Voice audiobook coaching program. Have a great week, my friends. Take care, and we'll be talking to you soon. We are streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. Take care.
This has been Your Book, Your Voice with host Robert A. Lane. Tune in each week for another powerful and informative episode of Your Book, Your Voice, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.